Here we are late in the class with a sort of compendium of do's and don'ts and a list of principles of level design. Now, a lot of these don'ts are from Ernest Adams' No Twinkie database. He has written a series of articles over many years on Gama Sutra highlighting things that designers should not do. You know, if you do this, you don't get a Twinkie. So, don't use up all your new or unusual features in the first few levels. Spread them all across the lot. Mazes, don't use them or use them very sparingly. Avoid links between things that are widely separated. Don't have a lever half a mile away to open a door. Who would do such a thing? You know, perhaps if it makes sense in a fiction way, then players would understand, but in general, that's dumb. And it also makes it difficult to play the game. Time pressure is something you can use to make things more difficult. A feature of video games in general is using time pressure to introduce stress so that players will make mistakes. Think of even something as simple as Tetris or Pac-Man, where things speed up gradually. You should avoid in levels or adventures, you must figure this out in 60 seconds or you're dead. Out-of-sequence checkpoints where you have to move back and forth over long distances is just not necessary. Bad manuals or bad tutorials, of course, are going to make it more difficult for the players. Don't force the player to violate his or her alignment unnecessarily. And by unnecessarily, I think is meant here unless it's really absolutely vital for the story involved in the level or adventure. Don't set the player up to fail. Players are there to enjoy the game. They're not there to be your slaves or your marionettes. They're not there so you can gloat over their failure. In particular, don't put hazards there that can only be found by dying. Another no-no is teleporting NPCs. It makes the whole thing feel silly. Try not to use any particular game feature too much in any level. Don't overuse it. Darkness, fog, other limits on movement and sight. Keep in mind that especially in video games, people are playing games to do something, not to grope around. If the players are going to experience levels, a series of levels in a particular order, you can use the earlier ones to help build up suspense in the later ones. Don't set up a situation where the players can't progress because they didn't pick up some magic item way back or learn some bit of information several hours ago. It's very, very frustrating to players. It should not be necessary. Let the player have some control. Don't turn the episode into a movie. Don't have fancy movement requirements, especially to move in 3D. Like the character must stand exactly in one place in order to get things to happen. Essential but unobtainable items are fairly obvious no-no. If a level is wildly atypical, wildly different from the norm, make it an optional level, not mandatory. Presumably the players like the typical level or they wouldn't be playing the game, so they might not like something that's a lot different. And then we have the law of communicating reservoirs. If you have two bodies of water and there's some channel between them, the water level will be the same in both of them. Apparently that's violated in a number of games. Here's some more advice, much of it from Brenda Romero, formerly Brenda Brathwaite. Avoid Deus ex machina, which means God out of the machine. What it is something that happens out of the blue to save the players. Well, the players aren't going to appreciate being saved by something else, especially something they couldn't even play a part in acquiring or calling for help or whatever. An example in a fantasy game might be where actual gods turn up to save the players. This is just not something the players are going to enjoy, even though they will appreciate being saved. Avoid death by exploration. There should be a reasonable way for players to avoid death when they're exploring. Don't guide the player or direct the player. Let players do things, don't show them things. Players want to be active. Telling them is even worse than showing them. Once again, if you have the right target audience who wants to be told a story, that would not be true. But remember that even in fiction, written fiction, films, the saying is, show people, don't tell people. You can't let people do it in those forms, but you can show them rather than tell them. When players gain a new skill or a new item, don't require them to use it the first time in deadly circumstances, because that's not really giving them a chance to learn how to use it. Don't give information out all at one time. Give it out a little bit at a time. This is more interesting to the players and gives them a chance to try different things. Consider reasons for the existence of whatever it is in the level or the adventure. Why is this happening? What are the players' motivations? Don't make players do things. Give them a reason to do things. Have logical outcomes. Now, in video games, this rule is often ignored because there are conventions in video games that are just ridiculous, like med packs and so on lying around just to be picked up. People willingly getting killed as long as they can kill two of the opponents. Well, you have to live with those conventions. That's the way it is. Traps should have a reason for existing. Randomly placed traps feel random. Now, I haven't talked about the MDA, which is Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetic, or Impressions, in this class. I do in the Learning Game Design class. But the impressions are the emotions that the player has. So, let the player feel like a hero or a badass. Don't treat him like a slave or a minion. Don't have some NPC, non-player character, save the day. That's the player's job. Offer players something rather than withhold something from them. Be positive rather than negative. Provide opportunities. Don't let the player feel like a delivery boy. That's not heroic. Trust the player. Don't railroad him. Don't make him follow a particular path. Give him a chance to see what's coming and then make decisions. When you give a player freedom to choose, don't penalize him by closing off all the possibilities for the choice that he didn't take. And it goes without saying, when I say he, I mean she as well. So don't take apparent control away from the players. On the other hand, don't give them a choice if it doesn't matter. It just wastes time. Let the players feel like they've earned their rewards. Player patrols are boring. Patrols are boring, period. If you're working on making the players feel fearful, you have to continually reinforce that, or it will dissipate. You may want players to feel that the life of an NPC is important, but if they don't spend enough time with the NPCs, it's not going to happen no matter what you try to do. And most of all, and this rule is violated many times in MMOs, avoid grinding, doing the same fairly easy thing over and over to achieve some benefit.